Hey, second period kids. Sorry we can't meet today because of testing. We have a little bit of notes and then we're going to do mostly practice today. And then we'll be going over any questions that you guys have tomorrow, which is Thursday. Or you can just see me after class or school or whatever. So yesterday we talked about the spending multiplier, which tells you exactly how much GDP is going to change by when there's a change of spending. Oh my gosh, I need to find a place for my head. Okay, here we go. So we practiced yesterday KS, the spending multiplier, which is 1 over MPS. So what you do with this is you take this spending multiplier and you plug it in and you multiply it by spending. We did a couple practice questions yesterday, and today you're going to have a chance to do some more practice questions. But we don't know everything just yet. There's one more multiplier that we need to add to our notes, and that is the tax multiplier. The tax multiplier works a little bit differently. So you can change GDP by just spending more, like changing the variables of GDP, like C, I, G, E, X, N. Those are all spending. Or you can like manipulate how much people have to spend by changing taxes. So the tax multiplier, just like KS, is as an equation, and it calculates how much GDP will change when there's a change of taxes, because this affects how much income you have if the government taxes more or less. And the tax multiplier formula is KT, and it's negative MPC over MPS, or you can calculate it as negative MPC over 1 minus MPC. Either way, whether it's the spending multiplier or the tax multiplier, MPS is always going to be on the denominator. But this time with the tax multiplier, we have negative MPC on the numerator this time. And so, like, let's say that you have, I'm trying to find a marker. Let's say that you were given MPC is 0.75. That is a common MPC that is given on the AP test. And so to find the tax multiplier, you would do negative MPC over MPS, which in this case is negative 0.75, because it's 0.75 is the MPC, but you make it negative. So negative 0.75 divided by, well, MPS. But remember, MPC plus MPS is always equal to 1. And so if MPC is 0.75, MPS has to be 0.25, because 0.25 plus 0.75 is added together equals 1. So you can use this in a calculator. You have the ability. But negative 0.75 divided by 0.25 is negative 3. So that means in this example, if MPC is 0.75, our tax multiplier, KT, is negative 3. So what that means is that if taxes were to go up, GDP is going to fall by 3 times, because just like we plug KS into a bigger formula, we're going to be plugging KT into this formula. The tax multiplier is multiplied by taxes. And so change of taxes times KT gives us that change in GDP. So in this case, let's say taxes were to go up by $100. Well, $100 is the change in taxes times that KT, which we just solved as negative 3. So then GDP would actually go down because it's multiplied by a negative. So $100 increase of taxes is going to have a negative impact on GDP because our tax multiplier is negative. So GDP is actually going to go down by $300 because it is multiplied by that negative tax multiplier. The tax multiplier is always negative because that's just the formula, negative MPC over MPS. And so, as another example, another practice question that you can like pause and work on. Let's say that MPC is 0.8 and taxes, let's say, decrease by $20 million. So taxes go down by $20 million. What would that do to GDP? So you can pause and try to work on it, but let's just solve it together if you want. So the first thing you got to do is realize that you're solving for some sort of change in GDP is equal to some sort of change in taxes times KT. Well, I don't know KT. It's not given to me, but I can solve for it because I know the MPC. And the KT formula is negative MPC over MPS. So MPC is given to me at 0.8. So the numerator is going to be negative 0.8 divided by 0.2, because remember, MPC plus MPS is equal to 1. So if MPC is 0.8, MPS has got to be 0.2. So KT is going to be negative 0.8 over 0.2. So you just divide, and that's going to give you negative 4. So that means my tax multiplier is negative 4. My change in taxes was given to me. It falls by 20 million. So a decrease of 20 million, which means because we're cutting taxes and they're going down, so it's negative, they're cutting taxes times a multiplier of negative 4, GDP is actually going to go up by, is that right? 80. $80 million. And that's positive because if taxes decreases, GDP is going to go up because lower taxes means we have more money to spend. And so GDP is going to increase. So hopefully you got $80 million of GDP change. And if you need more practice, you're in luck because hopefully you have this aggregate demand practice worksheet on you because on the second page, after all of your aggregate demand shifting on the front, on the second page, there are 6 questions that are multiplier questions. So we're going to do the first one together, and then you guys are going to work on this for the rest of your time. So you can work with a friend if you'd like. You can work by yourself if you'd like. So what's the challenging part is now we have questions that are, some are going to be changes in spending. And so you would use the spending equation with the KS formula. Some of them are going to be changes in taxes. And so you would use the KT formula to solve for GDP, or maybe you're solving for taxes or spending. So let's look at this first one together. So it says if the GDP increases by $200 billion due to an increase in investment spending, if the MPC is 0.75, how much did the investment spending change by? Okay, so they're talking about spending. So I'm going to bring up my spending page. KS is 1 over MPS, and they're going to take that and multiply it by spending to solve for GDP. So let's write down all the stuff that I know. I know that GDP, it says increased by $200 billion. Okay, that I know. That was given to me. I also know that MPC is 0.75. That's also given to me. Okay, so I know because there's a spending change, it says investment spending, that we're going to be using this equation here on the screen, where some sort of change in GDP is equal to some sort of change in spending times that spending multiplier. Well, the change in spending is actually what we're going to be solving for because it says how much did investment spending change by, because it actually gives you the change in GDP. The change in GDP is that $200 billion increase. You're solving for spending, but you also need to know your KS before you do anything, because you can't solve for this variable when you also have this other variable that you don't know. And so you have to figure out the KS, the spending multiplier. And on the screen, you see that the spending multiplier is 1 over MPS. Well, MPC is given at 0.75, and the KS formula, 1 over MPS, would be 1 over 0.25. Because remember, these two added together equal to 1. 1 over 0.25 is 4. So 4 is the spending multiplier. Now we can solve for spending. Something times 4 gives us the $200 billion increase in GDP. And this is investment spending that we're solving for. So you can divide both sides by 4 to figure out the change of spending. And it should be $50 billion. Because 200 divided by 4 is going to be 50. So $50 billion is the change of investment spending that led to that $200 billion change in GDP, since the multiplier is 4 because MPC is 0.75. And so make sure that we're showing all of our work on here. If you need help, I would do this in pencil for sure. Make sure to use your calculator. Make sure you also know what you're solving for. And question number 6 on here is a question that you're going to be asked so many times that it's going to annoy you, because how many times you're going to see this question almost word for word on quizzes, on tests, on the AP exam, on FRQs, all fair game. So work on this. Make sure that you know if you're using the KS formula or the KT formula? And are you solving for GDP? Or are you solving for like spending like we did on this one right here? And if you have any questions, you can't send me a text because I'll be giving a test. But you can wait till tomorrow and we'll go over any questions that you guys have. Anyway, have a good one. Bye, guys.